This is the TRU Leader Podcast. Today, our special guest is one of our favorite repeat guests, Lizzy Cangro. Lizzy talks about her latest book and teaches you how to reclaim the witch in yourself. Don't miss it.
Welcome to the TRU Leader Podcast. I'm Dr. Tracy Christofferson.
And I'm Michelle Trosett.
We are life and business besties, leadership coaches and mentors, and polarity intelligence experts. We're the authors of Polarity Intelligence, The Missing Logic in Leadership, and co-founders of Missing Logic.
We are here to help high-achieving leaders break through leadership norms that cause them suffering at work and home. If you're looking to elevate your leadership, increasing your productivity, effectiveness, and impact, and manage your health and well-being, spend quality time with those you love, and live your best life, then you are in the right place.
Our goal in this podcast is to equip you with new ways of thinking and practical and tactical strategies for succeeding at work and thriving in life. Think of this podcast as your weekly dose of personal and professional development so you can reach your full leadership potential, create a life you love, and be what we are calling a thriving, resilient, and unstoppable or true leader.
If you are ready to learn and laugh a little, let's get started. Well, welcome to the TRU Leader Podcast. We are in the studio, another fabulous day. This is Michelle.
And Tracy. And it is a fabulous day. Every day is a fabulous day. Come on.
That's the truth. That's the truth.
It's a story we're telling ourselves. Every single day is a magical day, right?
Yes, it is. And we get to talk to the most amazing, magical people. And we had someone right up there today.
Oh, yeah. Lizzy's awesome. I love Lizzy. Lizzy was one of my coaches when I was going through my dissertation, finishing my final, getting ready for my my defense. And I have had the pleasure of participating in two of the retreats that she has hosted, and she's just magic and fun and delightful. And I just love watching her grow and evolve and become all that she is and can be.
I know, it is fun. We've known her for a number of years now, so it is fun to watch that. And our clients love her too.
Yeah, they do. They do. And they enjoy her books. And we're talking today about her newest book. And it was just really just a light, fun, informative, inspiring conversation.
It was.
Yeah. She's magical. And we're going to talk about magic. Yeah. So let me tell you about Lizzy, and then you can let the magic shine all over you. Lizzy Cangro is a multi-award-winning author, registered nutritionist, and wellness witch. Through her 18-year journey of overcoming an eating disorder and battling with her body on a daily basis, Lizzy found her passion and purpose for helping other women heal their hormones, trust their bodies, and feel like the true version of themselves again. Holding an MA in Natural Sciences from the University of Cambridge and an MSc in Nutrition from King's College London, Lizzy pairs a scientific approach with an empathetic understanding and a side of woo-woo wisdom to help her clients feel their best, even when life is busy. So without further ado, here's all the magic that Lizzy has to bring and share. Welcome, Lizzy. We're so excited to have you back on the TRU Leader Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me again. I'm excited to get into our discussion today.
Yeah, we are too.
Oh, it's always such a joy to be with you. And the last time we were with you on the podcast was June of 2022. And for those of you that might want to listen in, that was episode 153. And we had a lovely conversation about a book that we just love that Lizzy wrote, Reclaim the Rebel. And now she's back to talk about her second book.
Yes.
So we're super excited about that. And so your second book, Reclaiming the Witch, wonderful, wonderful book. And in it, you disclose the 11 steps to reclaiming the witch within you. And we've already been sharing that with all kinds of people, and they are loving it.
They love it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Now, in the book, you really kind of defined witches as women in their power. And I said to Michelle, now some people might not use a W on that word.
Yes.
But Lizzy chose the high road. She is putting it out there. And I guess a question that I had was, one, why you chose the concept of the witch. I think that it's just really interesting. I think our listeners, it would be helpful for them to kind of get the behind the scenes on that. And then tell them a little bit about what motivated you to write this second book and this topic.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing it, and thank you for your kind words. I'm glad that you have enjoyed reading it. And really, I purposely chose the word witch because there is so much weight behind that word, right? I could have chosen reclaim the goddess, reclaim the divine feminine, but I feel like witch is very loaded. For not necessarily the right reasons. And so it's really important as women who want to step into their power to feel aligned in their bodies and their just way of being in the world, to reclaim that as a word. Because to me, as you said, a woman in her power who trusts her intuition, who is able to manifest what she desires, is a witch. And that's not a bad thing. I think we could all use a world where there are more powerful women, right? So I purposely chose the word witch for the title. And it's funny that you mention the other word that is associated to powerful women, because when I've been out and about with the book, I get that comment actually from a lot of older men who go, "Oh, my wife is sometimes a witch," and kind of does the sort of bunny ears, the inverted commas, and so even that kind of drives me even more to want to spread the word about really what is a witch. And kind of change the narrative about that one. And after having written Reclaim the Rebel, honestly, I love the process of publishing a book and just being able to share the tools that have helped me and my clients. And I just wanted to do more of that. And the one thing that kind of the feedback from Reclaim the Rebel was really, really positive and amazing. However, it was more on the kind of practical nutrition and wellness side, and it was less esoteric. And I think a couple of people also sort of mentioned, well, this is another part of you, and really would love for you to sort of share more about that. And so I was like, okay, that's part of my journey of reclaiming the witch, is owning that and sharing that. So I thought, well, why not? Let's do this, and let's reclaim the witch together.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah. Starting a revolution. A witchy revolution.
Yeah, we're gonna witch all over the place.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, that's quite scary, that whole idea. Because as I mentioned in the book, witches were demonized because they were powerful. And this whole stereotype of what being a witch means was built around the narrative of we don't want powerful women. The church decided that, this kind of powerful group of men felt threatened by women who were able to use the natural rhythms of nature to heal others, and who didn't necessarily need external validation. They were threatened by it. And so naturally, the idea of sort of the witchy uprising probably feels a little bit threatening to some people. And, that's okay. And that's something that we've been taught over generations is, something to suppress. But, it's time to kind of, as I say, change that narrative, because when you're able to be in your power, it's not being powerful over others, it's being powerful in yourself. And when you're powerful in yourself, you are able to live a life that is aligned. You're able to, in my kind of practice as a nutritionist and wellness coach, you are able to stop listening to the advice of others and really tune into what your body needs and what your unique needs are. And I think that is just completely transformative in every area of your life. So,
yeah, that's where the magic is.
So agree.
It really is.
Yeah.
So agree. Yeah. Well, and I think for leaders, and a lot of the leaders that we happen to work with happen to be women, most of them. I think just in leadership, right, being a powerful woman in a leadership role has been very challenging over the years and continues to be challenging, right? And so I think it is about stand in your personal power and operate from a place that's true to you. And, I think this is a great book to support that.
I would love to know as well, as women in leadership, what has kind of been the biggest obstacle that you've faced to kind of step into that part of your life and your sort of that part of the witchiness?
Yeah.
Well, surround yourself with other witches.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a whole masculine, feminine energy piece.
It is, yeah.
Right, and that we operate differently. One is not wrong and the other right. But there's been an overemphasis in the masculine energy when it comes to business and large organizations and corporations and that whole piece, right? And I think when you are trying to bring the feminine energy, like intuition, right, and different ways of being and relating in organizations and trying to lift it up, because we've been in the downside of the masculine energy, right? Again, it's that fear, it's that polarity of the masculine, feminine. And I think that's what, that's probably the core issue, is we're trying to bring another way. And it's not that it's only women that bring the feminine energy, right? There are plenty of men who, right, have the intuition and they're more relational and, right, they just have those different characteristics that are support feminine energy or value them highly, right, and see the place for them. So it's not about women against men when it comes to the feminine, masculine energy, right? But dominantly in organizations, it's been masculine. And I think that's been the biggest. And when we worked in a small company, it was almost all female.
Right.
But the makeup of us and the people that were in that organ, there was a lot of masculine energy in the organization. So we had the right combination, I think, of masculine and feminine energy, right? But the feminine energy had a place to grow and express itself. And when we got into corporate, where it was primarily masculine energy, I think that's where it was a bit challenging.
And you could really tell the difference for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a beautiful kind of point, is that we all have the masculine and feminine within us. And as women, we've kind of been taught primarily to nurture that masculine energy. And so that through a lot of this, that kind of can come out more easily. And so sort of having space to nurture that feminine energy, as you said, is, I think, really, really critical.
Yeah. Well, or not to downplay it, right? To your point, right? Stand in it. It's, like you don't want to just do what you don't want to just step into the masculine energy because that's what's accepted primarily, right? And when you do that, you can give up your power too. Like you can just push it down, right? And not really stand in it. And to your point with the witches, hide it. If you got it, don't show it, right? Because it's not accepted. It's not, it's not something that is being valued or will be valued, or you'll be persecuted for it. It'll get you in trouble, kind of a thing, right? And I think that it's just carried over and carried over and carried over. And I think we're in a new day. So I think a book like yours is really timely, and we're in a new day, and women are trying to figure out, how do I bring this? How do I stand in this and stand for it? And so I think that's a great conversation to have.
It is. It is really good timing. Yeah. And it is such a personal message too that you're bringing to every reader that reads it. And we love how you weaved your story with universal powers or magic that, we all have. And we wanted to call out a few of the steps that you wrote about that are so aligned to our own learnings and our own experiences that really jumped out at us. And we're going to start with switching, the S-witching on your powers. And you make the case that our manifestation powers come from our subconscious working with us being in aligned action. So can you give our listeners some examples of what you meant by that?
Yeah. So really that means there's kind of two parts to manifestation, right? It's being in a place where you are identifying with what you want, and your beliefs, your thoughts, your words are kind of congruent to what you say you want, and then actually doing it, because I think, again, this comes from a place of fear, is that even though maybe we have the identity of somebody and we've done the work to kind of get to that place, the identity of somebody who has what we want. So in my work, I see is clients, for example, I have one client who is currently training to do a half marathon in September. And she has been an athlete her whole life, but she has, in the last couple of years, had a couple of kids, not been training as much. So for her, she has the identity of an athlete, but, because of fear and kind of, I guess she has in her head like that she should be at a certain level, she's kind of been procrastinating and not actually training. But in order to meet her goal, she needs to do that action. She needs to get out and start running again, but also show herself a ton of self-compassion and patience in order to get to where she wants to be. So really, it's kind of that process of infusing the subconscious work, the words, the thoughts, the beliefs, the identity, and actually taking physical action. The reverse is true as well. So what I see a lot in clients is they start taking action towards their goal. So, for example, with my PCOS patients, they will start to manage their blood sugar and, have kind of like balanced meals. But then within a couple of weeks, they'll notice that they're craving just like really sugary treats. And maybe that's not kind of what they've been used to, like choosing, but their subconscious isn't quite in the place of believing and identifying with somebody who is healthy. So it's really kind of like making that marriage between the action and the belief.
Yes, yeah, totally.
Totally.
Yeah, I deal with it every day. Yeah. that part of you, right? Your brain's trying to keep you safe and saying, "Oh, no, you don't need to go out there and do that. We're quite comfy right here where you're at, right?" Like, so it's kind of you have to work on that and overcome that, and it's being aligned with that.
Yeah,
right? You're thinking because you can want something. Yeah. But if, like you said, if you don't have that identity, you're not going to take the action, right? And if you're taking some action, there's still a part of you, if you haven't done the work, that's going to try to draw you back to where you've been, right? Because that's what it knows. It's what it's comfortable with. I think this is the hardest stuff.
It is. And it's a practice. It's a lifelong practice, because once you master one area, you, as a human, want to grow. So there's going to be another area where you need to practice. And, that is where recognizing the disparities and the fear and just, doing it anyway. And not necessarily going from 0 to 60 in 2 weeks.
Right.
I think just kind of like dialing it back and going, okay, you've probably heard of the Atomic Habits, where James Clear talks about that 1%, making that 1% incremental improvement sometimes is enough, and just being okay with that as well. because that's going to feel better to our nervous system. Because what I see a lot, especially again in what I do around January, a lot of people go, okay, I'm going to do all the things. I'm going to sign up to this new gym and we're going to like get rid of all of the sweets and we're going to have completely like balanced, healthy meals, get to bed early. And by February, like it's dropped off. So I think it's tempting to want to do all the things, especially when we kind of like decide, yes, I'm going to reach this goal or, you know, change this about my life and transform. But sometimes, you know, because of that subconscious wanting to keep us safe and wanting to keep us comfy, it can be a little bit overwhelming to try and do all the things at once. So I think trying to make kind of changes incrementally is a downplayed part of transformation too.
Yeah. I totally agree with that.
Definitely.
Yeah. And it never ends too. I love that. It never ends. It just never ends.
It doesn't.
It's not the destination, girls.
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
It's the journey. It's the journey. To keep reminding yourself, right? Then you get to that level, new devil, right?
Yep.
You just, it's always something. You can grow and evolve. But that's why we're here, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So I think sometimes we only focus on the painful aspects of that, right? Like, but really it's about, you got to find the joy in it. You got to find the beauty in it, right? And celebrate each of those moments, you know, and recognize when you are. And I think sometimes when your growth is incremental, like you said, like the 1%'s great, you know, and you keep just doing another 1%. But I think when you are doing such deep personal work, when you're really changing your beliefs, changing your thoughts, the progress isn't always as tangible as it is when you're doing something a little bit more concrete, like running a half marathon, right? Like,
right.
You're not, and you did it, it's done, right? You can see it. But when you're doing your personal work, it's a little bit harder to see the progress that you've made because it is subtle. It is over time. It is an evolution. It is growing, right? So I think that adds to, you know, feeling like you haven't, right? Living more in the gap, right? Like I'm not quite there. I haven't done it all, right? Because you're not seeing how far you've really come, right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's really hard.
It is hard to quantify it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, then I think it's more sustainable too, because it is transformation over time, and it's much more sustainable than just rapid transformation. Let's just get all this change done. And then that's why I think you see the going back to the way you were very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think just being able to take a pause and look back sometimes can be really validating. Because as we were just saying, you know, transformation in terms of just who we're being and, you know, the kind of soul evolution, let's call it that you can't quantify it in the same way as, you know, distance running, you know. Yeah. Week 1, you run 4K. Week 2, you run 5K. Like you can't track that. However, if you kind of take a pause and go, okay, so 5 years ago, what was that version of me? You know, where was I at in terms of my business, in terms of my relationships, in terms of just how I was feeling in myself, how I was talking to myself. And then you can kind of go, oh, wow, okay, so I have changed and I have evolved. And that can be very motivating in the same way as kind of quantitative tracking is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's about staying in the game, right?
Yeah.
Staying in the flow. And, you know, I think when you can't necessarily see it, feel it as readily, you can tend to want to think you're not doing it and you just give up, right? Like, so it's just about staying in the game, keep moving, keep taking the steps.
Keep swimming.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes you have setbacks and they're there for a purpose. They're there for a reason, right? So you just got to keep moving. You have all the lessons that we need to have. And what do they say? You're always right where you're supposed to be. So
absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I would argue that setbacks are the times in our lives where we grow the most.
Yes.
Definitely.
I would agree.
Yeah.
The valleys, right? When you're in the valley, and what you do in that valley is what paints the future, right?
Yep.
Who you're going to be and what you're going to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about spell it out.
Okay.
Because we want to write some spells here. We're witches. We want to get our spell on.
Yeah.
And you talk about that step, to spell it out, and how the importance of our words and the power of our words, and how we're wielding that power all the time, whether we realize it or not. And we all love Florence Scovel Shinn, right? And just her, you quote her in the book about your word is your wand. And so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What do you got to tell our listeners about wielding that wand?
Yes. You got to be careful with wielding that wand, because that is powerful. And really what pops into our head and falls out of our mouth dictates our reality, right? So I think step one is being aware of where we're currently at with our words. What are the things that we're saying on a daily basis about ourselves, our relationships, our health, all of the things. And also the people around us, because the people around us are our mirrors. So what they're saying probably reflects a lot of our internal narrative. So being aware is step one. And then step two is identifying the things that are not necessarily helping us. So in my practice, the word try is banned, because try implies, oh, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. I say, no, I'm going to be like Yoda and try, you don't. You either do or you don't. So I think just small, subtle things as well. Like it can obviously be, very damaging beliefs like, I'm ugly or I'm fat. Those are ones that I hear a lot as my clients kind of say to me when they first come into my practice. And I was saying a lot of those things to myself when I was going through my eating disorder. But, it can be smaller things like I'm going to try and, drink enough water today, or I'm going to try and have gratitude today. If you just remove the try, it becomes so much easier to actually do what you are intending to do. So just being aware of some of the unhelpful spells that you're wielding, and then just make those kind of small little adjustments to make the spells that are unhelpful helpful and useful to you. So as I say, just taking out the word try or should, or changing I want to I am creating or I will. Just making those kind of small changes can make a huge, huge difference. Or, alternatively, if you just want to write down all of those unhelpful spells that you're noticing, and then just rewrite them into more uplifting, more positive narratives that you can then, work on. Again, it's a practice changing, because we're so used to saying these things that it is automatic. And they do just literally just fall out of our mouth sometimes. And so just practicing being, again, aware when that happens and, choosing a different narrative, a different spell to infuse into your day. And over time, that new spell will be the automatic kind of go-to thought. Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So that's kind of the process. And I think it's very important as well when we're sort of doing this process to think about how we feel about these thoughts. So the thoughts and the spells that we create that are unhelpful, they're not making us feel good. They're making us feel like crap. And so being able to replace these with things that make us feel a certain way, that makes us feel more motivated, more powerful, more empowered in our bodies, I think is also a really, it's not talked about enough in the sort of manifestation space, is that kind of the power of feeling, because our emotions are kind of almost conducting the way that our thoughts are kind of coming out into the world. So I think when you're creating your new spells, choose something that actually has feeling behind it, that's going to make you feel better. Because again, as we were saying, we get to choose. And so my spells that make me feel good are going to be different to your spells that make you feel good. So just that feeling piece, I think, is important as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's very sage advice and so true. And, once you learn this, then you do really realize the things that you say, but then you also start noticing it coming out of everyone around you as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which actually, I don't know, for me personally, that even makes me realize even more how important it is, because it is so subconscious. Like it's just how we've been programmed. And, so it's a really important practice. And I just love, the whole connection with your word is your wand. And if you really want to empower yourself, how important that is. Because you can think, oh, it's just a word. But there's a lot that happens with those words.
Well, it can be an interpretation, right?
Yeah.
And I think, and you just become aware, not just of your own, but aware of others, right? About how people are interpreting differently, what's happening or the situation that you might be in. And it's not right or wrong. It's just everybody's in a different place in their journey around that. I know I've gotten, like, I'm always like, don't put that out there, right? Somebody says something bad. I'm always saying this to my husband, don't put that out there.
Yeah.
Don't put that out there, because we don't want that. And let's not talk about that, right? Don't put that out there. And,
Well, the universe has it's kind of like
it's
ear
hearing,
to your brain.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so, you don't think you can do this? All right, fine. We're not going to put things in place to enable you to do this. Like
Exactly.
what goes on between your ears is so vital. And I didn't realize this until I went through this journey of just how much it does matter.
Yeah. It's significant. It really is. So I think this is just really, really important. And it, and it begins, and I think it's just healthy to say, okay, did that really make me feel good? Because if that didn't make me feel good, then why am I doing that?
Exactly.
Why am I saying that? Why am I thinking that? Right?
Absolutely.
If this doesn't make me feel good, it has no place in my life because I just want to feel good.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. But we don't even realize how we are perpetuating what we don't want by continuing to tell ourselves the same story, say the same words over and over and over. So I think this is really important. And I think you said something too that made me think about, you just have to decide, like you said, it's not about trying or doing, it's just deciding. This is how I want to talk to myself. This is how, this is the lens I want to look through, right? Yeah. This is what I'm going to do. And when you decide, then you don't have to keep deciding. You just, this is me, right? This is who I am. And I think when you can get to that point of just deciding, then it's not about making that decision over and over and over and over and over and having to deal with any, you just say, no, this is it.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Game over.
And I think the ultimate decision is, choosing happiness and choosing yourself. And I think I see a lot of entanglement happening, talking about sort of noticing what other people are sort of responding to and saying and choosing. You sort of go, oh my goodness, when you try to entangle your happiness with someone else's and, you're trying to impose your will on others. And, this happens a lot between like family dynamics in particular, where maybe somebody's making a poor life choice and then other people are trying to help them, but they're not ready to receive that help. And then this is causing stress on the other people in the family. And, at that point you kind of go, by kind of like trying to involve myself in this, is that a good choice for me? And is this actually damaging my health and my well-being? And I think sort of that ability to just decide, no, I'm just choosing happiness and love, kind of helps us in so many different areas of life, including those situations where obviously we want the best for our friends and family, but sometimes they make decisions that aren't, necessarily from what we're interpreting useful or helpful or healthful. But they're part of their own journey. So when we start sort of meddling in that, it can get messy, and it can then negatively impact us. So I think just kind of making that choice of coming from a place of, I'm deciding that this is the most powerful choice for me, and then going from there is actually benefiting you, but it's also benefiting other people because you're modeling from a place of power as opposed to, again, like fear and trying to intervene with someone else's journey.
Right. Yeah. And it's everybody's on their own. Right.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's hard to watch a journey, but you're not in control of that, and you can't try to take control of that. Right. So it can be difficult. I mean, it can be a challenge to do that, but you do have to take care of yourself. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is part of the journey. You're right. Yeah.
Okay, so we also want to talk more about some of the other awesome steps that you have in your book. I have a feeling we should have scheduled this for 2 hours.
Oh, you have to come back.
We'll do part 1 and part 2.
There we go. Yeah, there we go.
Well, there were a couple of steps that align so well with polarity intelligence, which you, of course, know that is our passion of bringing polarity intelligence movement to the world. And some of the polarities that really struck us in your book were science and magic, logic and intuition, masculine and feminine, which we talked about in the beginning, and relationship with self and relationship with others. And we actually have had podcast episodes specifically on some of those polarities that exist in life. But we really wanted to dig deep into the science and magic that you wrote about in step 6, alchemize your interpretation. And I just want to talk about magic and science.
Yeah. Oh, this is so close to my heart because I studied science at university because, I feel like it's a very important part of how I work with my clients. It's really important that I'm coming from a scientific sound perspective. However, science cannot explain some things. And I think, again, it does come back to sort of how we're interpreting, what is science and what is magic. And I think magic is really what science can't explain because the scientific method is all based on, okay, we form a hypothesis and we test it. And, we develop scientific, theories and concepts around things that are statistically probable and that we can explain. But there are some things that, we can't explain. And I also mentioned in the book how, 100 years ago, certain things that are now considered, scientific fact were considered magic and you could not explain that. So, 100 years ago, flying was pretty magical. And at the moment, we kind of see that with AI technology. AI at the moment, barring the discussion around ethics and, uses and all of that, but you can create a, 3-page essay on whatever in seconds if you want to with AI. And that's pretty magical. But it's based off of science. So it is definitely a polarity for sure. And I think it's an important one for us all to embrace because they're not mutually exclusive. I think they can support one another and be used basically to kind of move us forward in both realms of the scientific, but also the mystical and the magical.
Yeah, and I think what we love about polarities is they're both true. And if you only look at one unipolar aspect or only even, believe or take action too much on one, you're going to be missing the benefits of the other. Yep. So it's really an important concept, I think, to bring out there, that it is an and in both. And we're certainly come from healthcare backgrounds, can appreciate how important science is, and have seen a lot of magic in our work, in healthcare and out of healthcare. So
yeah,
it's really a great concept, science and magic.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's about getting to that greater purpose that we can't reach without both.
Yeah.
And, to your point, Lizzy, also, there were some things that, we didn't even think were possible scientifically, but through intuition or magical ways or different, like we are able to do things that we've never been able to do. Right. And so again, it's that to reach that greater purpose, we got to have both the magic and the science. And it's really what does help us evolve as a species, right? And as cultures and in all different ways. So I think it's really fun.
It is fun. And I mean, it can help evolve us in, the big ways, right?
Yeah.
But also just in kind of the day-to-day. So I see it with the concept, I practice intuitive eating. And it never fails to amaze me how incredible and smart the body is. Because let's take, for example, I have a client right now. She has a history of low blood pressure, and so she craves salt. She has more salt than most people, and she kind of wanted to reduce it. And then I was like, no. If you have low blood pressure, this is your body craving salt, because salt, as we know, increases blood pressure, and that's just a intuitive, magical thing that the body is doing, but it is also backed by science. Another thing is when women crave chocolate when they're on their period. Chocolate contains magnesium. Magnesium is so fantastic at helping reduce cramping. And chocolate also contains carbohydrates. Carbohydrates increase our dopamine, and so help us feel better. So it's incredible how sort of it feels like a very sort of intuitive and magical thing, but your body is scientifically, asking you for certain things. So I think that's pretty cool and magical, but also backed by science. So
yeah. Oh, okay. Like you said, we could talk all day. I think we're going to have to pause. Maybe we'll just have to have you come back because, it's just too much fun. It's too much fun to talk about all this awesome stuff. Well, it's just been great. But now we're at the point where we need to ask our mystery questions, because we want people to really know the true you. Yep. And so we have a couple of questions for you. Yeah. And I'm going to start out, then Michelle asks the second question. And what I want to know is, what's something new that you've learned about your hubby since you got married?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. Something new that I've learned about him since we got married. Gosh, I'm really having to think about this. What kind of comes to mind is
you have to be able to say it on the airwaves.
Yeah.
Can't be X-rated, Lizzy.
Okay, not that one. All right, okay, I've got to think of another one. No, I think it's actually to sort of trust in his ability to know, like, I'm not going to say what makes me happy, but I think before I was quite insecure about, can my partner know what I like? And I think by communicating, what my needs are in terms of love, in terms of space, in terms of just kind of like boundaries, right? I think that's really helped at sort of strengthening what he's able to kind of provide for me. And I think since getting married, I have not necessarily had to put that input in of the sort of like, oh, this is what I need, this is what I would like, and just kind of being able to trust him with that, and just kind of like, okay, he's got that. So I think that is probably a distinguishing factor of after we got married. Like, it was sort of just being able to be like, yes, like, we're in a partnership, and he knows what my needs are.
And you wouldn't have known that in the beginning. So that's great. That's great. And then the second question is, you speak of the importance of environment in your book. Tell us one environmental place or space that makes your heart sing.
Oh, the mountains. Okay. I love being in the mountains. I am such a nature girl. And obviously living in Southern California, we're very lucky. So we have a lot of beautiful spaces around us. But I truly, my shoulders drop whenever we get into the mountains and breathe the fresh air and are surrounded by trees and green. So, yeah.
Wonderful. That's awesome. Well, our listeners are going to want to know where they can find your book, Lizzy.
Oh, so Reclaim the Witch, I have her right here. Is available at all major book retailers online. So Barnes & Noble, Apple Books, all of those places. And then if you want to order direct and learn a little bit more about the book itself, you can go to reclaimthewitch.com and get your copy directly from there too.
Great. Well, we will put that information and a link to your website in our show notes, and we might be calling you again. It's been a great interview, and we, just awesome.
Yeah, please, like anytime. I love being here. I love being with you too. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's been just really fun witching with you.
It has been.
I can't wait to witch with you more.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. It was awesome. Thanks so much.
And for all of our listeners out there, thank you so much. We so appreciate you listening to us and watching us on our YouTube channel. If you enjoyed our witch conversation with Lizzy today, please share it with a friend. Please look her up and get her book as well. And also subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And we will see you on our next episode. So stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you next time.